Everybody good? Okay, we'll call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, January 26th. If I could ask everybody to please stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call, please.
Jim Batson.
Here.
Don Carmichael.
Here.
Pat Grudy.
Here.
Lisa Hessel.
Here.
Kevin Huber.
Here.
Karen Lundstedt.
Here.
Casey Rooney.
Here.
Okay, so we have everybody, correct? All right, so our agenda tonight, we will open it up for public comment. I believe we have 2 letters to read, correct?
That's correct.
Brian will read them tonight.
And I don't see anybody here in person. We will then open it up to our student school board representatives who will give us an update. Then the superintendent's report. We'll approve the consent vote agenda, which we reviewed 2 weeks ago in our committee meetings. We'll have brief updates then from program personnel and facilities and finance. Anything from IASB, Jim?
No. Good.
Nothing? Okay. And CEDAW, Karen?
No.
Okay, nothing from those 2. And then the executive session, is there anybody that sees a need to review the minutes in closed session, or can we approve that as part of the consent agenda? Okay, so we will not have an executive session tonight then. All right. Okay, so public comment.
Yes, 2 public comments. First one is from Samantha Phillips, English teacher at Vernon Hills High School. To the Board of Education, this past July, I welcomed my firstborn son in District 128, affording me the opportunity to take a leave of absence to be home with my child and adjust to life as a parent. On January 11th, I returned to work with the idea that I could use my first few days back to get caught up and prepared for second semester. I anticipated reading through memos, watching recorded professional development sessions, and getting a crash course on how to navigate eSchool and the new hybrid option. My unique position as someone returning mid-year allowed me to look at much of what has happened in quick succession, one email after another, and I like to share my observations. As I sifted through everything, I saw just some of what I missed. A nationwide Zoom outage on the first day of school, several Zoom bombings, followed by a new authentication process, a district-wide training, and a pivot to an asynchronous day with just hours to prepare. The incredibly complicated logistics of safely reopening schools as a deadly airborne virus continues to spread. Continually shifting timelines for when to start hybrid learning, continuing evolving guidelines, processes, and best practices. Athletic seasons that stopped, started, and stopped again, and hours upon hours upon hours of professional development with topics ranging from ed tech to SEL to equity and more, all meaningful and well executed. My colleagues have recreated the curriculums for every single course we offer in order to work for eSchool and hybrid instruction on a block schedule. My colleagues have learned countless new ed tech platforms in order to engage and support student learning. My colleagues have built new internal instructional coaching programs from scratch. My colleagues have planned creative online and socially distanced events to provide students with opportunities to stay connected in a safe manner. Administrators, teachers, and support staff alike have bent over backwards to make the impossible possible under extraordinary circumstances, and our board has provided us with the resources to do so. Everyone's work has been nothing short of Herculean. Pre-COVID, I often said that being a teacher in this district can feel like running a marathon among Olympians who are all pushing to beat their personal bests. My colleagues have been sprinting since last March, and while I had the opportunity to sit out a few legs of this race and instead take on a different challenge, I know that each one of them, no matter how winded they are, will help me to get up to speed. I'm so incredibly proud and thankful to work in this district. This pandemic has demanded much of all members of our community, students and parents included. I look forward to the day that we cross the finish line of this pandemic together. I know that we will all be a stronger community because of it, ready to set our next personal best. Until then, I hope everyone in our community sees, as I have very clearly in my first week back, that despite these extraordinary circumstances, the professionals of District 128 continue to be models of excellence. I'm hopeful and inspired as they join their ranks once again. And again, that was Samantha Phillips, English teacher at Vernon Hills High School. Next one comes from Dale Sherman, D128 parent. Dr. Lee and members of the D128 board, we are grateful for the positive steps you have made as a board to get us to the hybrid model. That said, hybrid is a temporary bridge, not a destination. Our students are entitled to an in-person schooling as a matter of right. Parents have paid dearly to fund this district and are entitled to have their students claim the benefit of that bargain, the essential service of in-person schooling. You have told us for months, everyone on this board wants to get back to teaching in person. Time to prove it. There are no more legitimate barriers to safe, full-time on-campus instruction 5 days a week. Neither the state nor the county has a prohibition against in-person schooling. Vaccines will soon be available to all teachers. Many other local districts have completely in-person all day, 5 days a week since August. Many more soon will be. All available creative energy, resources, and ideas must be dedicated in their entirety to getting the kids back in school full-time. This should have been the case since last spring. The unfortunate past cannot be changed, but we still have a chance to learn from prior mistakes and get innovative now. District 128 has enormous indoor and outdoor areas to utilize, so we can get creative with spacing. Some have raised a concern about liability for the district. I have spent a 26-year career as an insurance attorney handling liability, coverage, and litigation inside and outside the courtroom. Unless there is something unusual about the district's insurance policy, the liability risk seems grossly overstated. I would encourage that you not create policy based on the possibility of a rare exception, but rather manage to the probability of the most likely outcomes. As parents and taxpayers, and on behalf of our long-suffering children, we seek an immediate, safe return to normal. Please make getting D128 back to full-time in-person schooling your top priority. And again, that was Dale Sherman, D128 parent.
Okay, that's it, right?
That's it.
Okay, so before we begin, let me just address some of the comments tonight. First, I want to agree with Mr. Sherman. Over the past few weeks, we've taken significant positive steps in deploying our hybrid program, and I cannot agree more with him that this is, in fact, a temporary bridge. By no means should it be considered our destination, and I know everyone on this board wants teaching to be in person, and everyone's committed to doing that. So while during this pandemic period, nothing is ever certain, it's our hope that we will return to full-time in-person instruction sometime between now and the beginning of the next school year. With regard to there no longer being legitimate barriers to safe, full-time on-campus instruction 5 days a week, I, along with many public health officials, must respectfully disagree. Most of our peer districts remain in either remote or hybrid learning models, and many of those that have opened have done so with significantly reduced enrollment. I know there's been some talk this week about Glenbrook South, but they had roughly a third of their students come back to campus, which gave them the flexibility to do what they needed to, fully implement their mitigations of social distancing and so on and so forth. Likewise, while much progress has been made with vaccines, at best, I think the current projections are that our teachers and staff will begin to be vaccinated probably early to mid-February. Given that the approved vaccines require 2 doses somewhere between 3 and 4 weeks apart, and it takes about 6 weeks after the first injection to actually impart full immunity, it'll be near the end of March before our teachers and staff are adequately protected from serious illness. With respect to space, Anyone that's visited our buildings will see that our teams have been incredibly creative in developing facilities plans that support the needs of our mitigation efforts, and every available part of our buildings is being used daily. Regarding our lack of liability coverage for COVID issues, I want to be clear that while this is an important factor for any board to be aware of and to take into consideration, at no time has this been a determining factor driving any of our school opening decisions. Our focus has been and remains the safety and well-being of our students, teachers, and staff. And let me simply say, I'm proud of all the creative energy our teams have put into getting us to this point. Our teams have worked tirelessly to get us to this point, and while these efforts may not meet the expectations of all, they've been nothing short of heroic. Each and every person involved should be commended for their commitment to educating our outstanding students. And finally, with respect to next steps, now's the time for the community not just to talk about wanting to get back to schools and feeding the rhetoric on social media. Now is the time to take steps to help. As we've mentioned before, we've offered weekly COVID testing to all in-person students and staff, and this program is critical to assessing our ongoing risks of COVID spread in our schools and in our community. Through this program, we've already identified positive cases, which not only helps prevent spread in our schools, but it also helps prevent spread in our families and in our community. But nevertheless, we are still far short of our goal of having more than 80% of our students enrolled in the program. Right now, only 60% have enrolled, and this is far short of what we need to be successful. So now's the time to step up. If you want schools to open further, get registered, get tested, and help make this whole program a success. Okay, next, student school board representatives. Who's going to go first?
I think I'm starting off with LHS. Our thoughts on hybrid learning so far. So personally, I've only heard mostly positive things, very few negative things about hybrid from both the remote and in-person students. Personally, I think I'm more productive in class and interactive since I'm engaging in class and also just not in my bed or like on my phone. And honestly, I didn't know if I was going to go back to remote learning or not at the beginning of the semester because I thought that in-person would be similar to e-learning since we have to be socially distanced and can't really get near anyone. But honestly, it went way better than I expected because even though we still have to be socially distanced and we were still safe, it was just really good just to see and meet our teachers in person because they've been seeing us on a camera for the whole year so far. So it felt really nice to meet them. And we took a survey of some students at school, and from hybrid students, some positives, they said it was a lot easier to focus on schoolwork with less distractions. And from remote students, they said they had more time to do homework during passing periods and also meet up with teachers during lunch, and they just had more free time during the day. As for specific things that wearing gym clothes to school, since there's only 2 periods and the locker rooms are not open, so that was a concern. It feels weird to wear gym clothes to regular classes. And also students who have remote teachers in the middle of the day and then have in-person class the next period, they have no time to drive to school considering the circumstances that they have to go home for that class since they have to be in the class the whole time. So they have to drive while still on Zoom. That may be an issue. As for the COVID test, we surveyed around 50 students and around 70% of them said that they took the COVID test this past week. And they all said that the test was very quick and easy to take, so that is good. And then as for surprises or questions, a student had a question, can students who are participating in extracurriculars but not hybrid learning still get tested? And I believe the answer is yes, students will have the option to test if they're participating in any extracurriculars. And I believe that testing for athletes is also required. So those are my questions.
Okay, so to add on to Marilyn, I agree with everything that she said. I also wanted to commend, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Teachers are doing an amazing job optimizing our learning space. So, for example, my math teacher, he set up his computer in a specific way that allows us, like in-person kids, to see the board while also hearing kids ask, like hearing kids from home ask questions, and just in general, kind of keeping the classroom unified, becoming two different groups. And teachers have done an amazing job like addressing like the kids in person while also teaching the kids at home, because it's not an easy process for sure. But like in math, for example, again, like he would ask us questions in person to solve a problem, but then the next question he would ask a person at home, and vice versa. I also took a math quiz in person, so that was really nice. So everything about that and the whole classroom, it felt really good to be kind of together. And it didn't feel like two environments in that area, because teachers are trying their best to kind of make sure everyone's unified. What might not be working out well yet, like what Marilyn said regarding gym, we can't really change. And I personally do CrossFit, and you're wearing a mask while doing rigorous workouts. So you sweat a lot, and like you can't change after that. And I do have a period right after it. And sometimes I have in-person meetings after school. So you're like kind of sweating all day, and it doesn't feel good at all. So if there could be a solution to maybe changing and just keeping your clothes with you, that would be great. And another complaint, I guess, and there's nothing much you can do about this, but early bird sciences are 2 hours straight. So it starts at 7:45 when we are used to waking up at 7:40 for our 7:45 Zoom. It started at 8, but like switching back, now we have to wake up at 6 to get to school. And it's a very long time frame of 2 hours. As much as I love science, it's very long. In regards to the COVID test, it's going really well. It's top for me has been 10 minutes to get my test. I sometimes do it with like last week I did it with a friend and we were in behind the same curtain. So it kind of makes the experience fun, I guess. The people who are administering the test are super kind, and it doesn't hurt at all. I was worried that the nose swab, because I have taken a nose swab test before, would really hurt, but this one just felt kind of uncomfortable, but that's it. Got my results within 40 minutes, not bad at all. And one of my friend compared to like getting your results back to like a college admission status kind of thing, because you get a notification to your phone that's like your NAVIC ID being updated. So it's a little adrenaline rush. So my friends treat it as a game kind of thing. The one thing about it is kids are worried that they're not going deep enough for the nose swab. So they're scared maybe if they do have the virus that they're like, not. But the people who are administering it are trying their best to see if you're going deep enough. So that it's going really well. Surprisingly, students, the 10-minute passing period, students are all in their classrooms within the 5 minutes. So it's like you can hear the music playing at the end of the 9 minutes in your classroom, and no kids are bunching up in the hallway. Everyone keeps moving. Everyone ends up in their classroom super early. And it's all going well so far. So I'm going to hand it to Quinn now.
Thanks, Amal. Yeah, I honestly pretty much only have positive feedback. It's going great. Student morale is high. People are very happy to be back in the building. And I would say most notably, I think the board 100% made the correct decision to go 4 days a week, 4 half days instead of 2 full days. It is just significantly better being in school 4 days a week as opposed to 2. And I think everyone is just super happy to be back. I'm super happy to be back. And honestly, things are going great. 2, I wouldn't call them problems, but I think they're just things to mention or bring up, would be during the temperature checks, a significant, I would say about half of the kids are testing too cold on the cold days, because you get scanned on the forehead depending on what entrance you go in. So then you have to wait a little bit to get tested again once your temperature is warm enough to register. And if you're too cold, they're kind of just bunching all the kids in the corner. So what's happening is a big line of students is coming in the building. Half of them are, fine, they're going in the building. And then half of them are too cold, and they're just kind of getting thrown in the corner and waiting around until they can get tested again, which I don't know. I just think it's something to bring up. I don't know if it's a huge issue, but I just think the board should be aware of it. And additionally, with bunching up kids is the holding spaces. While the students are in there, it works great. They're socially distanced along the walls or, by their assigned spots. But once that, I don't think the bell rings, but teachers tell the students they can go to classes, everyone leaves at the same time. So all the students are kind of crowding the door and like herding through the hallways at the same time. So that's another issue with space, which I think could be addressed. And that's my feedback on being back to school. I love it. My only thought is we should have done it sooner. It is great. And to roll into athletics, Libertyville student athletes plan to stand against the IHSA's decision to hold off certain sports. Their main message was to get our season back. Students marched from Cook Park to Libertyville High School at 4 o'clock today. They had masks and social distancing, and we had about 30 to 40 students turn out for that. Additionally, in specifics, we are currently in phase 4, and we have just moved from tier 3 to tier 2. And this allows us to resume all winter sports except basketball at this point. And low and medium risk sports are now resumed, which includes bowling, badminton, boys swimming and diving, girls gymnastics, cheerleading, and dance. And that wraps it up for me. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Quinn. I'm gonna take it off with fine arts. Again, not that many updates, but Shrek the Musical has started the rehearsals. And I talked to some people who are involved in it, and they said it's been running pretty smoothly despite the restrictions that come with Zoom rehearsals. And there have been in-person rehearsals in the auditorium, the choir room, and the dance studio. So they varied the spaces, and also the pit orchestra has also been rehearsing, and they said it's going well. The musical will not be in person, but it will instead be recorded, kind of like a movie, along with the pit orchestra who are playing along with it. And then personally, I went back to band this semester. There was already an option to go back to band last semester, but I chose to stay remote. So this is the first time I've been in band, but I think it's really fun. And I think honestly, everyone's just having a lot more fun playing together as opposed to that's going really well too. And that's basically it for fine arts.
And then moving on to clubs and activities. For fun class competition and to keep the spirits high at LHS, this week is Spirit Week. Yesterday was Mix It Up Monday, where students could choose to dress it up or dress down. Today was Tie-Dye Tuesday. Tomorrow is on Wednesdays, we wear pink Zoom style. Thursday is Wildcat Out, and Friday is the long-awaited Color Wars. Stuco will be passing out spirit gear for Friday in coordination of each grade to their class color, and I'm very excited for the grade competition. Best Buddies is hosting a virtual movie night next Thursday. So encouraging to see the active engagement and adaptions our Best Buddies Club has made this year. There is a new addition to LHS, the Wildcat Meditation and Reflection Room. This room is especially valuable and special to our Muslim students, as during winter, one of the 5 daily prayers lies during the school day. This room allows for a quiet space to complete that prayer comfortably. Amazing job, MSA Exec, Mr. O'Neill, Mrs. Kruckman, and Dr. K on this awesome and valuable accomplishment. And I'm going to hand it to Eva for Vernon Hills.
Thank you, Amal. So we're going to start off with our hybrid update, and this is from Diego's perspective. He said, I've been in hybrid learning and have many positive things to say about my experience so far. Even though a small percentage of the student body has returned, I've already enjoyed many spontaneous interactions that could only take place in school with both classmates and teachers alike. Also, I'm yet to see any of the social distancing and sanitizing practices being violated or disregarded by students and staff. Structurally, the passing periods are generous, and the office hours and lunch setup don't disrupt one's day. With that said, the AA group schedule, while seemingly confusing at first, has proven to be very straightforward and easy to follow. I personally have my 7th and 8th period classes online due to the teachers staying home. So being a Group A student, I end up spending my whole Friday at home. That also means I haven't taken any classes in the cafeteria. Although I've heard it's a surprisingly good learning environment since it's optimized for significantly more students than it receives, leaving room for everyone to spread out and still have their own space. As for the extensions on the building, I have no classes in any new area, but I've taken the time to visit these spaces and ask people about them. Everybody seems to love the extensions and echo that they're very practical and well thought out. Overall, he gives hybrid learning a 9 out of 10, docking a point off just because the building can feel a bit empty at times. Here's to hoping we can get more kids inside sometime soon. So this is my perspective now. So I'm a remote learner and I have been since first semester. This semester, 6 of my teachers are in person and one of my teachers stayed remote. It's the opposite for students. In the majority of my classes, most of the students are remote and only a few are in person. Having students remote and in person are quite similar. The only difference is that my teachers have their attention towards students in the classroom and students online. Along with the switch to hybrid, many of the students I've talked to have said that the early 8:25 start time is one of the hardest and most notable differences. According to Mr. Smith, who is an in-person English teacher, hybrid learning is meeting his expectations. The hardest part for him as a teacher is being able to multitask. He said that finding a way to give equal attention to the students online as well as the students in the classroom can be difficult. During the first week of hybrid, he had 8 in-person students for his Bible's literature class, and this week that number dropped to 1 student. He enjoys having students in the classroom because sometimes students bring the energy and warmth that would normally be present in a full classroom. As a very extroverted and expressive teacher, it's difficult for him to bring that aspect when he has to wear a mask, being that no one can see his facial expressions. He also enjoys using the 5-minute breaks he gives his students to get to know his in-person students. This gives him the opportunity to build relationships, which he missed his first semester. And Mr. Smith also said that because he's comfortable using technology, he's been able to flexibly and comfortably teach from home and at school. To start the year off on a good note, Student Council created 2 videos. In the first video, Dr. G challenged the student body to pick a word to help guide them through the rest of the school year, a word that inspires them. Students were then able to place this word in a Padlet. Some of the words listed were hope, discipline, focus, and balance. The second video was dedicated to 2021 seniors, in hopes of reminding them that not only are they missed, but they are so strong for persevering and that their hard work hasn't gone unnoticed. With the start of the new semester comes the end of first semester classes. VHHS held a rolling drop-off for textbooks and supplies from Monday, January 11th to Thursday, January 14th. It was widely emphasized that teachers will communicate what supplies will need to be returned. Following the drop-off, there was a textbook supply pickup from January 19th through the 22nd, where students picked up new material for new classes. Classes such as AP Environmental Science have a separate supply pickup for new classes, which is actually tomorrow, February 3rd, alongside the new STEM wing of the VHHS building. Students, please check your email for more information from your teachers and Mr. O'Brien. Following the riot at the Capitol, VHHS teachers have taken the opportunity to have these tough discussions with their students. In my AP government class, my teacher, Mr. Eric, led a fantastic discussion where he worked to discuss what happened and why. He was able to separate facts from fiction and open the floor for the students to ask questions or share their thoughts. Not only was the discussion unbiased, but he strived to make sure that his students knew that they are not alone in how they are feeling and that there will be support, that he will be there to support his students in any way possible. There was a similar format in many of my other classes following that school day as well. Also, VHHS hosted a blood drive on Friday, January 8th, which was sponsored by Student Council and National Honor Society. This drive was able to collect 83 units of blood. In 2020, the drive collected 88 units, and in 2019, it collected 81. This year's 83 units were provided by mostly staff members and students. Due to social distancing protocols, the sign-up was limited to 5 people every 15 minutes. This year, the blood drive's goal shifted. Usually, the goal is to collect blood and expose students to the donating experience so that they become lifelong donors. But this year, the goal is to collect as much blood as possible and to target adult and experienced donors. Overall, the blood drive was a success. Now I'll be passing it on to Kayla.
Hello. Okay. Every year at the beginning of January, students are asked to select their classes for the upcoming school year. Often teachers give students course recommendations and students
Kayla, you cut out. Is she there?
nearly normal
Frozen.
with some limitations.
Hmm.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep, she's back.
Can now.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my computer today. It's been like this all day. Low-risk winter sports have started at VHHS. Josie Daniels is a gymnast on the gymnastics team. She is being coached by longtime VHHS teacher and wrestling head coach, Mr. Mazzelli. She describes her experiences as nearly normal with some limitations. During practice, gymnasts are required to wear masks unless they are the only one practicing. They practice social distancing, which makes it hard to do team bonding activities. As an in-person athlete, she is required to take a COVID test about once a week. At first, the team held workouts over Zoom, which led many students to quit, because it was too hard, too boring, or too far from normal. But now the main concern is will the gymnasts be ready for their meet in 2 weeks. As of right now, there is no announced plan to hold the basketball season during this time. Teams are still fighting to be able to play their season. 2021 senior Danielle Gerald is currently a remote learner who is committed to play basketball in college. She said that she is bummed she may not get to play the season, but she is fortunate because she knows her basketball career isn't over. She said it would have been nice to have one last season at VHS, but she feels it's definitely more bittersweet for students with no plans to play competitively beyond high school. Second was worth it. This seminar worked to teach students leadership skills and give motivational advice, with a large overarching emphasis on sharing ways to keep the student body virtually involved, whether that's through social media pages or virtual activities. The students who attended definitely learned ways to create a positive school culture, alive in and out of the classroom. Every year, VHS students take the 5 Essential Survey, which is a survey to help recognize what we can do better as a school. This survey is important because it tells our schools ways it can grow and ranks our school in comparison to other Illinois schools. Students will take this survey February 10th during their second hour class, and their second hour teacher will guide them through it. Students must check their email for a state-issued ID in order to access the survey. Myself, along with the board reps, have had the opportunity to write out and plan our district policy for equity and inclusion. Over this time, I've learned a lot about what's going on in our district relative to race, identity, and culture, and what members of our community feel as they go through our school system. I have been able to work to bring insight on what students are feeling about staff diversity and student acceptance. Personally, I've learned so much and can't wait for the final result. Now back to Amal.
To finish everything off, on behalf of Quinn, Marilyn, Diego, Kayla, Eve, and I, we wanted to thank you all for all your hard work and dedication towards all students since the beginning of the pandemic. From providing a truly effective e-learning experience to constantly working towards the end goal of school reopening, your effort has not gone unnoticed. The first exposure to this process that we, as student board reps, received were the summer task forces, which showed only a glimpse of the constant hard work that went into this hybrid plan. Once a month for 2 hours, the 6 of us are able to pitch into the ongoing conversation regarding a multitude of topics. You leave us with wows, admiration, and a sense of pride after every single meeting. Furthermore, the implementation of COVID testing is something that you should all be proud of. In short, thank you for every person in this call for teaching us unforgettable life lessons. We live in a complex time period where conflicting priorities and differences felt loud and dividing. But even through the tough moments where universal agreement was almost impossible, you have shown us how important it is to listen to each other's voices, respectfully debate, and discuss everyone's ideas, as they are all worth being heard. We cannot wait for one more semester of being in this position. And that concludes the LHS and VHHS Student Board Report.
Okay, great job, you guys. That's fantastic. And I think it can be said that you guys have had the experience like no other student school board representatives before you, between summer task forces and hiring superintendents and doing that. And that is hopefully a record that shall never be broken. But I just want to say thank you to you. And also, I know I had some feedback from both Dr. Gilliam and Dr. Kolenis, and they were just so positive about how the students have reacted coming back into the buildings. And we greatly appreciate all your support for all the mitigation efforts and all the things you're doing to really just help us make this work. So I just can't thank all of you and all of your colleagues enough. You're just an incredible group of students. So thank you. Okay, superintendent's report. More good news.
Well, Pat, actually, the students identified all the good news tonight, and I think you would all agree that they probably do that much better than I do. Anyway, Kevin, don't say anything. So anyway, thank you. And, just another phenomenal month under phenomenal circumstances. So next on the superintendent's report tonight is capital projects. So I'll turn it over to Dan and Mark.
Mark, you want to give a status on the construction?
Sure, Dan. Over here at Vernon Hills, in the academic wing, we are working on punch lists. The classrooms are presently being used by teachers. So we're moving forward in there. In the cafeteria area, Area B, we're not using the servery because we're not doing any food at this time. But the expanded seating area is being used for students, for staging, and also in between classes for them. So testing tables are set up, and the kids are also socially distanced in that area. And then in Area C, with the new gym and dance studio is being used. Classes are being taught out of the dance studio. And in the West Gym, the bleachers will be completed this week. So once that they're fully assembled and operational, it'll be turned over so for athletics to use it as well as PE.
On the finance side, I mentioned at a previous meeting that we did cut the final check for the LHS pool project in December, which is exciting. So I'm almost done closing those books. And when I do so at the next meeting, I'll have kind of the final numbers. But really, at the end of the day, we'll be over by about 2,000, which is pretty
Phenomenal.
cool. I don't like being over by $1, but considering where we were a year ago, this is really good. So that's a major credit to Gilbane for getting things in
Phenomenal.
order. And then this project is plugging along. We are very close to being out of contingency for this project, hopefully, but as there hopefully not a lot of unforeseen things at this point, because most of the buildings are built in this. So we'll see how that goes and kind of watch that on each month. So that's what we have on that. And all the change order stuff, information is there for you. Yeah, that's all I got on that.
Great job, Dan, on the pool project.
Okay, any other questions for Dan, Mark? Okay, thank you. Guys, next section, hybrid learning opening. This contains a number of the normal individual items and now several additional items since we have gone back in hybrid learning. And we've also had our first hybrid learning opening week, as we've heard a good detail from the students. So I asked John and Tom tonight if they would talk a little bit about the numbers of students coming back and from their perspective, some highlights on the hybrid learning opening week at LHS and Vernon Hills. So Vernon Hills and LHS. So Tom and John, I'll turn it over to you and you can determine who wants to go first.
Thanks, Prentice. Pleasure to be able to update you and the community on our hybrid start. I feel like a proud papa. It's been a good week and some, and I know that Tom feels the same way. Kind of the tale of two schools with LHS, significantly high in-person numbers, and Vernon Hills with significantly high remote numbers. Just in terms of Vernon Hills, just to give you an idea of participation in our in-person hybrid program. Over the last week and a half, we have had 467 students take part in the in-person hybrid learning. The commitment that we had headed into this semester was 536. So we went from about a commitment of 34.7% down to just at 30% of our complete student body choosing to go to hybrid. I think, you could find all sorts of kind of anecdotal data as to why that is, from just fear of the virus to students finding out that their friends weren't going to be there perhaps, or their teachers would be teaching remote. We do have some teachers who are teaching remote. The new strains of the virus caused some parents to say, we're going to pause and see what happens here. So long and short, we're at about 30%. I want to touch on some areas that I'm really pleased with as we kind of exit the first couple weeks of this. More specifically, a couple of the systems that we have in place that really a ton of hard work by a lot of capable people went in to pull this off. First, from a health and safety perspective, you think about our nurses, our security team, staff monitors, and even our buildings and grounds crew, all working in unison to make our environment safe and healthy for students. I think it translates to students who have a sense of order. Things don't feel out of control or chaotic. The environment feels in place and purposeful, I would say. Students feel welcomed. Our staff and leadership teams have significant presence throughout the building. I joke that my guess is these poor kids, these 400 plus kids are greeted by more enthusiastic adults than they probably ever have been in their lives before. So they have to do a lot of, doing well, thank you, but it's good. And because these steps were taken to minimize the risk of exposure and spread, I just get the sense that staff is feeling more and more comfortable each day. I also want to mention just transportation. This is one of Dan's favorite topics, but I think it's a good note and something worth talking about. Of course, our parents and students have done a great job getting to and from school in a timely manner. Of course, there's some pretty quick turnaround between classes. I've heard almost no complaints from students who move between remote and in-person. So I just want to thank our community for getting students to and from school, not an easy thing to do. Then our busing has really been great. High praises to Lakeside for the work that they've done. From kind of perfecting the timing of the start of the day to working hard on a complicated transition between the A and B cohorts. They've really done a great job. And then I would just say on the instruction front, obviously we're all about the teaching and learning, and I just would love to give a standing ovation to our students and our teachers. Teachers are dealing with, in our place, 85 to 90% of their students remote, and just a handful of students, sometimes as little as one or two in front of them at any given time. And of course, this creates some difficulties for the learners. It can be, a bit awkward to be the sole participant in a classroom environment like that. And the kids that I talk to, though, say while it's hard to manage some of the digital learning experiences in conjunction with being in person, they really do enjoy it and are getting the benefit that we hoped that they would. It's also been a challenge for our teachers. They're working hard to balance their attention between the screen and the room. I believe, though, they're creating an experience that is meaningful for both the remote and in-person learners. And the more I talk to them, the more I feel like they're hitting their stride. And it's just, it's good to see them getting used to the system and making instruction work for both the in-person and the remote kids. I do want to give one more shout out, maybe lastly, to our tech team. Under the leadership of Bo Warmbold, his group here has just been awesome and helped the teachers hit the ground running with very little interruption. And so overall, really pleased with the week and a half. Tom.
Absolutely. I echo the things that my colleague John was sharing. I definitely will talk about students and teachers in a moment, but do have to say to our community how fortunate we are to have such extraordinary school nurses in our buildings, because during this 100-year health pandemic, it has become very apparent how skilled, knowledgeable, and just how tremendous their bedside manner is. They are extraordinarily positive and energetic. I can't even imagine and quantify the amount of time they have spent on telephones, talking to students, to staff, to parents, to community members, so many questions and concerns. And they are so responsive, and they do it in such a positive way that helps put our buildings at ease and make sure that our students and staff are as safe as they can possibly be when they're with us. The other day, Dan Stanley and I were walking the halls, kind of watching and learning about how the hybrid was going. And we had a teacher teaching a lesson right in the middle of the lesson. Kind of her electrical system sort of just shorted out. We have so many monitors and cameras and speakers plugged in. But it was one of those moments where I saw how great our IT team and our B&G team was. Within 10 minutes, it was 4 classrooms that actually went out. So right in the middle of the lesson, the kids at home, would have seen dark screens. The kids in school were looking at the teacher. The teacher was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? But within 10 minutes, we had about 2 of our tech staff there. We had 2 of our B&G staff. The problem was identified and immediately fixed. What was really cool about that, not only how awesome it was to have our IT and BGs be so ready and so responsive to support the instruction, but the students actually, during the lesson, realized that the teacher's system went down, and then a couple students used their own Chromebooks to take over the class and use their iPhones to connect with the students who were at home. And so it was a good example where the kids were taking care of one another to keep learning going on during that time. There's so much positive energy, and positive energy doesn't really describe it. At Libertyville, we have about 71% of our students have elected for in-person learning. Our attendance each day we've been tracking. A lot of my colleagues at neighboring schools, they had 50 to 80% of their students elect for in-person learning, but the actual numbers of students who are showing up every day are 30%, 25% and lower. For us, we're getting 85 to 90% of our students attending each day, which is phenomenal, and it is pretty average for what January brings. There's a lot of students who are just having to miss for various reasons. So for us to run that type of attendance is a tremendous testament to how happy our kids are to be back in school and how valuable they find their time with our teachers in this hybrid model. Even today on the snow day, we sort of told students if they needed to stay home today and learn remotely because of how bad the roads were and things this morning. But we only were down about 100 students from our average. So even on a rough day weather-wise, the majority of our students who were supposed to be in school attended school. The students are doing an extraordinary job of following all the health and safety guidelines. It's so impressive to watch them and to see how seriously they're taking it. And as you heard from our board reps tonight, they're reminding us as adults, like, hey, Dr. Kalenis, we're seeing us bunch up here. We've got to fix this. Or, when this is happening, this system isn't working well. And we're getting feedback from our kids. And we're kind of like a football team right now, or an athletic team. After every single entrance and exit and hallway change, we're watching security camera tape, we're watching our footage, and we're diagramming plays and recognizing where things didn't go smooth. For the first day, we had a long line waiting to get in the school. We immediately recognized our system didn't work and made real-time adaptations and adjustments. And now we're running like clockwork. So that doesn't happen without so many great teachers and staff members really taking this serious and working hard to support one another as a team. Just to close out, I do want to finish with what John was saying and to commend our teachers. I don't think, unless you're a teacher doing this hybrid model, you really just cannot understand how difficult and challenging of an assignment this is. Our teachers are working harder than ever. Remember, they're not just responsible for delivering content. They're not just responsible for talking about information. They have at-home kids that they feel connected to and want to stay engaged with. They have kids in the classroom in front of them who they want to stay connected to and provide a good in-school experience. They have to wear masks while they're doing it. The kids are wearing masks who are in front of them. They have to maintain social distance. They can't pass out and share materials. They can't necessarily have kids get up and come over and explain where they're struggling with. They have to manage all of our student SEL needs and kind of know who's not feeling good today, who's down, who maybe had a great college acceptance moment, and how do we make space and time for that story to be shared. They have to do interventions for kids who are struggling to learn the material. They have to implement all of their 504 and IEP accommodations with great fidelity so that students in person and at home can still learn and access the lessons. They have to answer student questions, and when kids are absent or struggling with the work, have to develop makeup assignments and makeup work and try to do that at a time when you have half the kids at home and half in front of you. I am, and I know John is, and every member of our team here is just so impressed and inspired by the work that our staff is doing. I don't have the words or the accolades to truly express to you just the efforts that they're making, and they're doing it with such heart. It is, we knew and we know our staff is the best of the best, and this challenge is all the proof you ever need to ever see that. It's really great to see. So I'm optimistic about moving forward, and we will continue to work on those adjustments to get our kids. So Amal, you don't have to wear your sweaty clothes all day. We'll work on some locker room stuff. And Quinn, thank you for bringing that up. We don't want you guys to bunch up like penguins. We want to keep you spread apart. So we'll be back to the drawing board on some of that stuff tomorrow.
Good job. Thanks, guys.
All right, Tom, thanks. So just to quickly summarize, we have had an amazing 3.5 weeks as of tomorrow. Just a quick review for the community that may be watching tonight. On January 4th, the teachers came back. They had 2 weeks of preparation time and the opportunity to acclimate into an environment in which they had not seen other people since March last year. Folks that have integrated back into those situations know that it takes a little adaptation to be able to do that. And then they prepared for the instruction that the students have talked about tonight, and John and Tom have talked about, with concurrently with students in front of them and students at home, and beginning to master that technology. And then the 19th, our students came back and brought all of that energy to the building. And we have since had an amazing week last week and an amazing start to this week. And here's the punctuation point here, the dotting of the I and the crossing of the T. Much like we talked about in the summer when we were going through those very challenging, complex, and difficult decisions about how we were going to open school. If you recall, I had said to the 900 or 1,000 people in the audience at the board that night, once a decision was made to go remote, that by the end of the year, we would have the best remote learning in the country. And so the dotting the I and crossing the T tonight is we're only getting started with this, right? Only getting started. And the more we do this, the greater even that it will be. So it was an incredible start, and we'll continue to build on that because that is the culture that we've developed here, and that is what we do, and that's how we go about things. So there's so many people to thank. Just thanks to everyone, starting with the board and working through everybody in the organization, and of course, our wonderful students and the support of our parents and our community. So it's really great. So any questions on that from the board before we move on? Okay, thanks. So we're gonna shift back now to metrics. I just wanted to tie up because connect that to the student reports, the opening of school. So we're gonna ask Pat to go back And we're going to continue, Pat's going to continue to assess metrics for us and report out on those at meetings so we can stay on top of relevant and current data. So Pat, turn it over to you.
Brian, do you have that couple of pages? We're going to do this very briefly. And it's probably, these could be hard to read on the screen. Okay, so all the data that I have today, with the exception of 2 slides, I think is all pulled off the Northwestern database. All right, and main reason for that is the Lake County Schools dashboard for test positivity is way behind schedule. I mean, I don't think they've posted anything in there since November. So I just, frankly, I kind of ignored that. All right. So the good news is both Vernon Hills and Libertyville are actually in much better shape than a lot of the surrounding communities. There are still some communities to the north of us that are still high single digits, low double digit positivity rates. Vernon Hills for the latest week is running at 5%. So that is higher than what it was in the fall, but significantly down from where it peaked around Thanksgiving time. Next slide. Let me mention one other thing. Actually, one disconnect I have found in this data, if you look at the rolling average number tested per day, I don't believe this data includes our current in-school testing. I would expect those numbers to be higher. All right, so I'm going to look into that because I know our healthcare provider is reporting the data to the state as he's required to do. And I don't honestly know why those numbers are not included in the calculation. All right. So round numbers in Vernon Hills are getting about 8 positives a day at this point, and the number of cases per 100,000 around 220. Next slide. Libertyville data is pretty similar. So Libertyville is actually running a little bit lower, around 4.5%. They see about 6 new cases a day, testing about 130 people, and their prevalence data is actually quite a bit lower, 139 per 100,000 tests. Okay. Next slide. This really just kind of shows the trending for the positivity rate. And so you see for the last couple of weeks since the middle of the month, Vernon Hills has been running between, almost 7% down to about 6%. So it's hanging in there pretty consistently below that 8% threshold. Next slide. And likewise, Libertyville showing very similar data running between essentially 4.5% and 6%. So both communities doing a pretty good job, especially relative to some of the surrounding communities, and both communities doing better than the state overall. So great job. Next slide. This really just shows the longer term trend. I won't spend any time on it, but you can see where it peaked kind of back, I believe, in Thanksgiving time period. Let's see. Sorry, I can't read this very well.
Right before Thanksgiving,
yeah. So yeah, before Thanksgiving, we were running, pretty close to 10%, and now we're down to, 4, 5, 6%. So a lot of progress in both communities. Next slide. And then hospitalizations. I mean, this has been the metric that's been causing the most issues for Region 9. But basically, the hospitals in our area now are running high 70% bed utilization. So it's in an almost critical area, but actually not too bad. All right. And then this is consistent with the data that I did show recently in previous meetings. So 7-day rolling incidence rate. This is calculated differently than Northwestern, and that's why the numbers don't line up. But you see the big peak that we came off of from Thanksgiving time. A lot of improvement, really, both in Lake County as well as Libertyville, and then the next slide, Vernon Hills. Technically, both of these metrics still trigger remote learning. But actually, if you look at the Lake County website, they don't even actually call that out anymore. They actually call it as high risk. They don't actually even call out the learning mode on the school's dashboard. All right, so that's where we stand. Much better than we were 2 months ago.
Okay, any questions for Pat on that? So again, we'll keep, thanks to Pat, and we'll keep updating that data every 2 weeks as we're meeting, just so we can stay on top of where things are at. And the news is really good right now, so.
And we did move from tier 2 to tier 1 today.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, and one of the, Kevin's aware of this, and one of the students talked about a friend who played basketball. We're hopeful to get some news tomorrow from IHSA as the tiers and the levels or phases continue to change. that may be more favorable than what basketball is right now, because the other winter sports have been able to go, with the exception of wrestling, which has already been moved. So it's all good. So, okay, so that takes us next to number 4, health and safety. And Pat, I think we just wanted to do a quick overview here of the Abbott by Next Now testing. We put a lot of information out. We had the webinar where we had about 370 people attend the webinar with Pat, myself, and Scott Morcott, and several of our staff members in the district. So Pat, anything that you want to highlight on the program as an overview tonight?
No, I mean, I think overall from what I'm hearing, and there's great feedback from the students, it's going great. A few minor hiccups here and there with the app, but I think we've been working through those. I know the people in the buildings have been working real hard to get people scheduled and do that. So, again, great job by everybody that's either participating or working to make it happen. Again, I'll make one last appeal. It will really help if we can get our participation rate up. Part of me wanted to have a contest between the teachers and staff and the students to see who gets a bigger number, and maybe. But then I wanted to say, and we'll give a big party for the winners, but I guess we really can't do that.
Virtual.
So, we could have a virtual, maybe we'll give them a virtual something. I'll challenge both groups to see who can hit 100% first. Because it really does help. I mean, we have found some positive cases, and the more we can do that, the better. And I think it's going to be great to have data on our own population. So we're not going to extrapolate when we're making decisions. We're not going to extrapolate based on data that's Region 9 or Lake County or Libertyville or Vernon Hills. We're going to have, I think, pretty solid data on what we have. I will address, though, let me just address that one publication.
Yep.
All right. There is one publication from the CDC that came out, I think over the weekend, at least it was on social media over the weekend, that talked about the Binex Now test missing some asymptomatic cases. That's not a surprise, all right? In fact, if you look at the details of that data, the ones they miss are the ones that are very, very, very low positives. So by PCR, they have what they call a high CT value. So a CT value of like 30, 31, 32, which, by the way, are the same kinds of specimens that people were concerned about that we would detect with PCR that would no longer be people who are infectious. All right. So again, this is the balancing act. You trade off sensitivity for specificity. But at the end of the day, I think we can all feel very confident that the test is very good for what we're doing under two circumstances. One, you test every week. All right. So if I miss you Tuesday, I'll probably get you next Tuesday, which is better than not getting you at all. So that's a fundamental thing. And the second thing is the test is actually very reliable during that period when somebody is most infectious. Okay. So the fact that we're missing somebody that's got such a low viral load that they really aren't yet infectious, or they've already been infected and they're on the back course of their infection, is really of much less concern. All right. So we still feel confident. And when you trade that off with the fact that it's a very easy test for us to implement, it's a very easy test to do, and it gives us results in 15 to 30 minutes, all those things taken together, I think we still have a lot of confidence in the program. That's it.
Okay, great. And I think the students indicated tonight, it is a very easy test to take. It's a low nasal swab. So the people that think about tickling the back of the brain that people talk about and can be painful for people, particularly with loaded sinuses, it's not that, and it's very easy to do. And it is, a 10-minute walk in, get your test, turn around, because it's appointment based. So to that point, we just want to share a little bit on numbers kind of as of today. And so right now we've got about 78% of the staff that's registered to test. And interestingly, that's actually a little higher than the survey data that we got back when we asked the question earlier, a month or 2 months ago, if we could do testing, would you sign up for testing? So, and we're hoping additional staff will continue to do that. At LHS, about 62% of the hybrid students, not including athletes, who are remote and they're athletes. So if a student is a hybrid student and they're also an athlete, they're counted in the regular day population. So right now we've been about 62% of the students that are registered to test. and at Vernon Hills right around 60%. Now, let me put that in perspective, because it'd be easy to say, well, gosh, we're not at 70 and we're not at 80. So the numbers this summer, again, couple months ago, when we did some surveying on this, the numbers at both schools were 70 plus a little bit. Okay. So to put this in perspective, a week ago, Monday at 10 o'clock, we were at about 30%. Okay, and those numbers have started to climb. This is before we required student athletes. Those numbers have started to, or continued to climb. And both the buildings now are doing what I would call targeted marketing. So if someone has not signed up for the test, they're connecting with them again, seeing if we can help them. Did they have trouble with the app signing up? Did they give up? Can they not find a slot? Working through a lot of those individuals. And for other people, we see you haven't signed up. Can we talk to you about that? Because we'd really like to encourage you to do that. So I think we've almost doubled our numbers here in, a week, so to speak. And I think the buildings are doing a great job. And let me give a shout out to Andy Young at Vernon Hills and Ole Stevens at Libertyville. Just another two incredible administrators in this district that are kind of working the logistics on the testing end for us. Just amazing stuff they're doing. And then we're going to keep working on this. And we're going to go another week or so. And if we don't get those numbers up around 70 and start to push them 70-ish, and so we can start to push them up toward 80, the number that Pat talks about, then we will contact the folks that aren't testing again. And Pat and I will have another webinar and just give them a chance to talk to us about, maybe why they're not, what they need to be able to maybe be comfortable to do the testing. And do that. So we'll see how the numbers run this week. But I think all in all, with a brand new testing program that's real, probably for us to be in the 60% right now is a pretty good place to be. And the last thing I would mention is that we're really in the vanguard and the cutting edge on the weekly testing with a Buy Next Now type product, right? Some of the districts in the area are using the Buy Next test for gateway testing. So they're testing everybody once when they come back, right? And then may not do the follow-up. We didn't think there was great value from our perspective in terms of doing that the weekly testing was much more important. So I think it's all good. It's great to hear the feedback from the students, of course, and we've gotten good feedback from the staff at this point. So another way for us to ensure that we can stay on top of the health of our own community and give us the best opportunity to continue to have kids in the building and hopefully build on that number down the line. So any questions for Pat and I on testing at this point, or John and Tom at the building level? Okay, great. I just wanted to quickly mention, the students also mentioned this, that again, we are requiring weekly Buy Next Now testing for students that are involved in student athletics. We are talking about how we would fold other extracurriculars and fine arts into that once we get the athletics established with the testing. And we're also tracking those numbers, so we'll be able to report out on those. But in essence, we gave those students and their parents a week to get registered so they could practice for a week, but they needed to be registered for testing during that week. So again, one more step. We thank the board for working with us on that because we think that will help too. Okay. Very quickly, 4B is educator vaccination overview, and Pat touched on this a little bit, but the short version of this is very shortly, the next week or two, we are told by the Lake County Health Department that educator vaccinations will get started in Lake County. There will be 2 primary educator vaccination sites connected with Lake County. One will be at Round Lake High School, and the other one will be at Stevenson High School to be on an appointment basis. It looks like right now the appointments will kind of be after school, early evening, and on a Saturday. In terms of that, they may be asking other local districts to supply some volunteers, perhaps some health professionals there moving forward to help with what they need to do. The other thing you may be starting to hear about in the media, and this is getting more chatter and more play locally, is that Walgreens in particular had some vaccinations left over from 1A, phase 1A. And so there's a possibility they may be working with some schools or school districts. We're hoping that ultimately that will be in conjunction with the health department so they can really develop a partnership. And from our end, we would encourage any of our staff members, if they can get vaccinations somewhere else and they can get them sooner, then by all means do that, because the vaccination setup in Lake County is predicated on the supply line of the vaccinations that they're going to get, from the federal government to the state, IDPH to the local health departments. So they will only have continuity in testing with a steady stream of vaccines. So if Bryant, let's say, goes to Walgreens and he's able to get his 2 vaccinations there, that frees 2 vaccinations up through Lake County. So we're hoping that, perhaps CVS will jump into that, and there'll be several places where educators can get vaccinated. And we know some places in the country, there are terrible shortages of vaccines, and not everybody in 1A has been vaccinated yet. So we've been keeping our staff up to date. In fact, I have a meeting tomorrow morning. We are very fortunate in this county, and I think this is worth mentioning here, because it's always good to know that government agencies are working. The Lake County Health Department and Executive Director Mark Pfister and his staff meets with all of the Lake County superintendents once a week on Wednesdays, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they update. They're wonderful to work with, very customer focused in terms of moving it. But we know from our colleagues who work in other counties, they don't have that kind of relationship with their health department. So we need to give them a shout out, because they're really doing a good job working with us. Okay, Dan, do you want to talk about transportation at all? I think somebody mentioned it was really working well. Maybe that was you earlier.
Yeah, we're excited that the transportation, the linchpin for it to work in this model is the midday run to get the kids home, turn around, pick up and bring kids back in the hour and 20 minutes. Hour and 20 minutes sounds like a lot of time, but when you break down the numbers, you can't drop them off here exactly when their class starts. They have to be able to walk to their class. So you actually have a lot less time. And so the company being able to do that has been impressive. On a normal year, we run 50 routes a day, morning and at 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. Now we're running 96 routes a day. So it is much more expensive per day right now, but this would be about 75 days for the year if we run through like this model, versus not running them much for the rest of the year. So we're working on those numbers. I mentioned to you before, especially back in November when we kind of told them to get ready and then we told them to wait. I said, we're working out an amendment with them. Also with our renewal, because our contract is up this year, to kind of piece those together. But yeah, that's working well. Quite honestly, it's not a very efficient system in terms of kids on a bus. In order to route this, you have put very few kids on some routes to get them to work right. So it's not like you can put kids on a route for an hour or 40 minutes. You can't do that and make the midday work. So they're doing it. They're stepping up to the plate, and just happy that they've been able to execute it.
That's great.
Okay, great. And then Dan, why don't you continue with COVID-19 expenditure tracking if you want to make any comments on that tonight?
Yeah, just at this point, we've tracked about 360,000 for COVID expenses. That hasn't really changed much in the last couple of months. That will substantially change once we get our billing for the testing, which we have not yet received those. So once we do, we'll pay those out and report back on that. So yeah, that's where we're at. In the budget, we set aside about $500,000 for just pure COVID stuff. And so we're getting little stuff each day. At this point, we're getting refills. So hand sanitizer bottle refills, because some of the, that kind of stuff, we're seeing a lot of those replenishes, and that stuff might happen more as well, but the testing is going to be significant once we get those in.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Dan. And I have a couple of quick others at the end, so we'll save it to the other under number 6 there. So we have 2 FOIA requests this evening, and we'll read those into the record. The first FOIA request was a commercial request. It was received on 11/5/2020. The response deadline was 12/7/2020. The requester was Ken Deloin from Smart Procedure. Information requested, all purchasing records from 8/6/2020 to current, purchase order number, purchase date, line item details, line item quantity, line item price, vendor ID number, name, address, contact person, and their email address. Follow-up was done by Rose DeSico in Dan's business office, and the request was fulfilled and the response was sent on 12/4. The second FOIA request this month was received on 12/2/2020. The response deadline was 12/9/2020. Requester was Seamus Quinn, construction analyst, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa Foundation for Fair Contracting. Information requested. Information regarding the project demolition of structures bid out on 11/5/20. 1, the copy of the bid tabulation. 2, estimated date project is to be awarded by the district. 3, if project has already been awarded, a copy of the signed contract between the district and the awarded contractor. 4, if project has already been awarded, an estimated start date for the project. Follow-up was done by Dan Stanley and Carol Scoden, and the request was fulfilled and a response sent on 12/9/2020. So next on the agenda, the superintendent's report. Pat indicated this before. The administration is recommending that we do not release any of the or that we approve the semi-annual review of closed session minutes at this point. And we do need a motion and a second on this, Pat, and then a vote. And if there is no need to go into closed session, we will not have a closed session tonight.
Okay, is there a motion to maintain the list of closed session minutes confidential?
So moved.
Second, okay, any discussion?
Yeah, I just have one.
Sure.
And I always ask this. Attorney's good with this, yes? We always run this by the attorney. Attorney says keep them closed.
Yeah,
Okay, want to make sure that.
yeah,
Okay.
yes.
Anybody else? Not
We
roll
should
call?
do that periodically during the year, Kevin.
Yeah, thanks. Roll call, please.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt. Aye. Rooney. Aye. Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy,
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, we good?
Other.
All right, 2 quick others. First of all, we were one of the few districts in Lake County that actually was in school today.
Yeah. that's
So
great.
how do we arrive at that decision? Is the superintendent crazy? Some people think so on snow days. But actually, the process works basically like this. Can we get the staff in? Because we have to have staff to teach the kids. Can the buses make their runs? Can we get the kids in safely? And as Dan would point out, the buses are generally built to run in, not great weather sometimes. So those are, obviously, 2 key factors in the equation. And then there are a couple of other factors that go into that decision-making. So part of the process here is that we will network with our feeder districts. We will also network with other, for us, high school districts in the area. So it's very common for Stevenson, Lake Forest, us, Mundelein, Warren, kind of to form a little group in our area moving forward. But at the end of the day, we're going to make that decision generally on the morning, early in the morning. Today, most of the people in this room were up at 4 o'clock this morning to start that process. And then we start having the conversation. So a lot of the school districts on a situation like last night where they're predicting a heavy winter storm may make the decision the night before. And there have been circumstances that we have made that decision when there's more certainty. It's, let's say at 9 o'clock the night before. We felt in this case that it, would follow our normal protocol that we would normally meet very early in the morning and then make that call. So that's how we, wound up in school today. I think we had a good day and most of the kids made it in, I think. And, we'll continue to do that moving forward. That's how we kind of ended up in today. And some of the other schools chose to stay home. Now, interestingly for us, if we have to be out, we're going to use remote days. We're most likely not going to use a snow day. But interestingly, some of the districts in the county actually use snow days that would be add-on calendar days at the end of the year. But I think for us right now, there'd have to be an exceptional situation for that to happen at this point. And if we had to actually be off and out of school, that we would probably use a remote learning day. Okay, so any questions on that? And then the last thing, this kind of wraps around Pat's earlier comments following public comment. I just want to be clear with the community is that as we start planning for next year, we're planning for a regular opening next year. So if you have students in school that are signing up for classes in January, you're signing up for a regular class schedule. And so all our work is going to be down that road. If something would happen and we would have to start in hybrid or pivot back to hybrid or even go remote, we know how to do that. And we have the ability to do that. But I want to say clearly, and there's evidence of this because students are signing up for classes next year on a regular schedule. And so we're going to continue to go down that path. And understand that, we have a couple of other tools in the toolbox if we have to use them. And as we approach the start of school next year, then the board at that point will be able to do assessment with the administration and, make the decision. But that's our default in terms of our planning for next year. So just want to be clear on that. And there should be no question in anybody's mind that that's where we're trying to head. Okay? All right, Pat. That concludes
thanks.
superintendent's
I just
report.
had a quick comment or question. For one thing, I just wanted to let those viewing with us to know we had an amazing equity presentation done by our equity team at our committee meetings last 2 weeks ago. And just as a sort of a encouragement to us as we build super important to build this equitable atmosphere at both of our schools. We're working hard at that. I think we're going in great directions. That if we see opportunities to do that to our neighboring communities, and what made me think of it was when you talked about if Walgreens or CVS maybe have some extra teacher vaccines. There are many districts that don't have the resources to do all these wonderful things that we're doing to keep our teachers and staff and students safer. And I don't know what that is exactly, but if there are ways that we see to say, hey, we can advocate for those around us and make sure that they're maybe in situations that don't have the resources to keep them as safe, that maybe we look for ways to advocate for that in terms of vaccinations or whatever, if there's extra supplies. So just made me think of that, like what a great thing that would be to take what we're doing within our own communities and try to make that work in the neighboring communities around us. So that was just a thought I had.
Okay,
Great.
good comments, Karen.
Yep, for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, the consent vote agenda is listed. My first response is, wow, we had a lot of meetings in December. We reviewed all of this earlier in the month. So if I could just ask for a motion to approve the consent vote agenda as listed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Next, Program and Personnel Committee update, Chairperson Batson.
Thank you, Dr. Grudy. We just have a couple items on the agenda here. Over the last month, we've looked at several updates to some policies, So we're bringing this list of policies for a second reading and adoption to this meeting. They've been reviewed in the past 2 months of committee meetings, so they've been well looked at, and we've resolved any concerns. So we need a motion and a second to approve the board policy updates as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Rooney.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Grudy.
Aye.
Hessel.
Unmute.
Oh,
Muted. Yep, there you go. Thank you.
Huber.
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. And second on the agenda here is a group of additional employment of employees. And as we can imagine, as we're transitioning into hybrid, we're adjusting our staff and bringing people back in some cases to assist with that process. So these were brought in later, not included on the consent agenda. So we need a motion and a second to approve these.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments on these? Okay, roll call,
I
please.
would say it's actually really nice to see a previous student coming back to assistant coach one of the teams. That's always a very heartwarming thing to see.
Yeah, that's always a good thing. Okay, roll call, please.
Batson.
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Grudy.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. That motion passes unless anyone has any other for program and personnel. That concludes the program and personnel agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Facilities and Finance Chairperson Huber.
Thank you, President. And I'll turn it over to Dan. First item we have is a 2020 comprehensive financial report. We went over this at the committee level. Anything else you want to say on that one, Dan?
I would add just a few things. One is encourage anybody present or watching, if you're interested in reading, it is a lot of pages, but I would suggest starting with the management discussion and analysis, which is meant to be a summary. And then as you go further into the report, it's more detail, more notes, more context. That's kind of how it's designed. One thing to note is our net position. So when you look at our district as a whole on a full accrual, which includes our assets and capital assets, our net position increased 2 million last year, which sounds weird when our fund balance decreased. So as a lot know, we've been doing a lot of amazing work on these additions with our pool and the additions here at this building, renovating the old pool. And so our fund balance decreased from 102 million last year to 89 million this year, but our net position increased. Why? You spent the money, how does that happen? Well, the interesting thing is full accrual is smart enough to know we didn't just throw that money away, we invested that in capital resources. And so that money is still here, it's in those buildings. Now that will change over time as those areas depreciate. But for now, that value is there. So that's what goes into making that different. But we do have the fund balance of 89 million. That's there. And so we still have more to spend on the capital projects here. And then we got a few other things that we're looking at in the future as well. But the district is strong and stable. I would note one thing that is a little bit more nerdy in there, that if anybody notices, there was a pretty big increase in our OPEB because of our retirement health plan. And so for those of you who know that our teacher contract, we had changed retirement provisions. So instead of a lump sum, there was a post-retirement reimbursement for health insurance. That is exactly what that is. That because there's now eligibility for that, the costs for that go up. So that's a long-term liability that is going to get reflected on our books that's reflective of that. But, you know, that's part of the negotiation process, just let you know that there. And then for the future, we'll see, we just saw that CPI came out, it's 1.4, which will affect our levy for 2021. And that will be interesting to see how those shake out. So then I will take a lot of this data and I will use this to also with our enrollment projections to kind of create our long-term financial projections to really see how things are shaping out. So that'll take me in a month or two to kind of put that stuff together, but have that information for you. But yeah, this is good numbers, good information. Major thanks to Rose, who was a huge asset in terms of putting this together. And I don't think her value is accurately reflected in these assets, but yeah. So yeah, we have our comprehensive annual financial report.
Even though inflation looks low in the coming year, I think in the out years, it's unlikely to stay that low.
Yeah,
based
we'll
on
see.
what I'm
I got to be honest with you. The last 10 years, inflation has been a bit of a mystery to me. It's been pretty low, even on a steady kind of 2% tick. So they haven't seen a lot of fluctuations. It's been pretty interesting. So we'll see what happens.
The chatter among economists, I think at the moment is a little bit of concern on which way inflation might head here with all the stimulus and fiscal policy. So we'll see. So I mean, it's low this year. That's concerning, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, I got to say
Not
right
paying
now, I
attention.
don't see any threat of inflation, but we can nerd about that later, but very exciting prospects.
Okay, other comments on the CAFR? Hey, Dan, you want to just kind of briefly go through timeline? The budget process is when, and the tax levy process is when? Because those are really, you got the CAFR, the budget, and the tax levy are the big financial things. So when's the budget process?
Yeah, budget process starts right now. So it technically starts in December when you all pass the resolution to authorize me to begin the preparation for that budget. Then over winter break, I create the budget sheets. The process we developed is creating those budget sheets. First week, it was actually the second week this time, send all those sheets out to all the departments in the district, and they've got until spring break to get those back to me. I'll spend the month of April reviewing those. And the idea is having all the building budgets finalized before school is out, or really before Memorial Day is the target there. And then in the meantime, with that, we're budgeting for salaries and everything, which we already know a lot of that data that we can just kind of plug in and review. So our goal is to really have a tentative budget done, early summer, really, and then just kind of making some tweaks for final budget adoption midsummer is the ideal timeline. And then adoption for the levy would come in the following November. So just, a few months after that into the November timeline, based on the data. So when you file the levy, you technically could pass your budget and file a levy now if you wanted to, but there's a lot of unknowns that there's some data we don't know, and we would be much better suited to levy based on data, more accurate data that we really won't get until October, based on just the property tax and assessment cycle with that. So yeah, that's really the process.
No, I appreciate that. I think that's important to know. I think that's kind of two big documents, the levy and
Yep. And when we budget for levy assumptions, that what we think is going to happen with the levy, because there's, we know what CPI is, so we know what inflation is, which is what your levy is allowed to increase by the rate of inflation, which essentially maintains the buying power. But we don't know what new construction is going to be. If I had to guess, I'm guessing it's going to be lower than it's been in the past few years. So we'll see.
Great, thank you. Other comments on CAFR or those type of financial documents? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Any other questions on that? Nope. Okay, Carol, I'm gonna call it.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Grudy.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
Huber.
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Batson.
Aye.
All All right, great. We'll move on to train service contracts at both Vernon Hills and Libertyville. Dan, you just want 1 minute on what these are?
Yeah, so we have a building automation system. And so at Vernon Hills, we've had a service contract in place with Train. That it was a 5-year agreement that is expired. So now time for a new one. And we have not had one at LHS, but now because of the new BAS system and all of the things that we are trying to control very tightly in terms of how those systems run, Mark and his team felt that it was time to put in a service contract for that. So the Vernon Hills one, the price, at least the first year, is actually the same price as we had last year. So that's a 0% increase from last year, and then it increases 3% a year. LHS is I guess, unknown percent increase because it was from 0 to the amount that's in there. I think it's 26,000-ish. When you compare my opinion is when you compare the complexity of LHS to Vernon Hills, it just being a little bit more expensive at LHS, that sounds really great to me. These are nationally bid contracts, so it's part of a co-op purchasing agreement. So that's really the info. Mark, did I miss anything or anything to correct that I was wrong on?
No, you're right on with all that information. And in the Vernon Hills agreement, there is a additional option for support for the administration building. That is a separate building with separate controls. So I'd like to, make note of that and to, it was for the first year's $2,503. We'd like to add that into as part of the Vernon Hills agreement as that option. To add the
So you're recommending
administration
we
building.
include that in the total cost? You want us to approve the optional amounts as well?
As well as the optional, yes.
Okay, very good.
And just a side note there, we don't own the building where the ad building is, but we do own the equipment. So having a way to monitor and service that equipment is important.
Yeah, we've had the monitor there. This is just the service and the programming.
Right.
We're trained to do that, but yeah, we put it, that was part of when we did the BAS system here, we did it there as well.
Okay, good
Right?
clarification, Tom.
Correct, yes.
Mark, you think we get $52,000 a year worth of service contract work between both buildings and the admin building, as opposed to just doing it, we self-insured place? I mean, service contracts are always one of those, do you do it or don't you do it? I mean, is it worth 52
Right,
grand?
yeah,
I
we'll
assume
get
it.
the behind the scene support with the analysis and the upgrading and the programming, as well as the on-site support. Especially where we're lacking the on-site support at Libertyville High School. It's such a complex building that support is desperately needed.
Great.
And to that point of why they've not had it until now, they've been kind of going by, but they've run into enough stuff that said that they believe it's worth it at this point.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Any service contracts? All right, seeing none, we'll start with, may I have approval of the Vernon Hills train service contract at the amounts presented, including the optional amount?
So moved.
Have a second, please.
Second.
Thanks, Tom. The questions? Okay, Carol, you want to call Vernon Hills contract, please?
Grudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, may I have a motion for approval of the LHS train service contract as presented?
So moved.
Thanks, Don. Second? We have a second?
Second, yeah.
Okay, thanks. Okay, other questions on that one? Okay, want to call that one, Carol?
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt,
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Grudy.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to some tractors. Mark, we need some tractors or some equipment.
Yes, we have this approval of Sourcewell contract for Vernon Hills grounds maintenance equipment. We're looking to replace, we have a 2006 John Deere tractor. It's a small unit. It cuts grass as well as we use it for snow removal. We run brush and sweep sidewalks and that. So we've been having issues. We had it on our, to purchase it last spring, but with COVID and everything, we held off, and now with the snow and everything, it's time to replace it. So this is for a new John Deere 1575 terrain cut and mower deck attachment, as well as a broom for sidewalks, for year-round use.
So it's Sourcewell, so it's nationally bid purchase contract, and, we're really bringing it to you because of just the dollar amounts. So you can kind of see it's in the budget for them. So like, this is not additional money or anything. It's just, they're just replacing a tractor.
All
An
right.
expensive
And just as a
tractor.
clarification, the price tag is huge. And so I went online and tried to see if I could buy one. The price that we're getting is under anything I could find online. So good job trying to find, I don't know how you're doing it, but it was way better than anything I could find.
Other comments on, and there's two, are there two? Because I saw one had the side mower and the broom, and then there was something else, but it's still a 1575.
It's still the 1575, yes. It's
Is that-
just a one piece of equipment with enclosed cab.
So we are approving, you want us, well, we're not, I guess we're going to approve the contract of 41,928.28 is what you want us to approve.
Yes, please.
Okay, other questions? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the Sourcewell contract for VHS grounds maintenance equipment at a price of $41,928.28.
So moved.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All right, thanks, Lisa. Okay, Carol?
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Rudy.
Aye.
Hessel.
Aye.
All right, I think that passed. And then final on the Facilities and Finance Committee is the Village of Libertyville just take in our easement. They want an easement, so you want to explain what's going on with that, Mark, and what we need to do to approve it?
Sure. Last spring, we talked with the board and discussed the Village of Libertyville installing a brand new water main across the southern part of the Libertyville High School property, basically from our west edge of our property to just past the stoplight, probably about 75 feet in that. So they replaced that section of pipe, replaced the valve and everything feeding our building. So the water main was on the south side of the street. They moved to the north side because of complications at the intersection. So we agreed to let them put it on our property. So this is the final agreement. Dan has sent it to the lawyer, and the lawyer has reviewed the agreement and the standard easement agreements.
We had a temporary, we had a temporary one in place meant to have a permanent one within 6 months. So this is the permanent one.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there further work that's going to be done?
No, the job is complete. So
Yeah,
this is the
okay.
final part of the project is to issue the final easement agreement.
Okay, that was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, and I was kidding. The Village of Libertyville is great partners. They've always been great partners with us, and this is a no-brainer in terms of doing this, and that's why we granted the temporary easement and let them do the work, and they did it. Didn't disrupt us hardly at all in Libertyville. So, any other and thank you for getting it through the attorney. Any other comments on the water main easement agreement? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the Village of Libertyville water main ease agreement as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Don. All right, Carol.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Rooney.
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Rudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber.
Aye. Okay, anything other for finance facilities? Okay, President Grudy, it's back to you.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, no ISB, no CEDAW, no executive session, no need to return to open session, so that's it, right? Or is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So moved. Second.
Second, okay, discussion, none, roll call, please.
Rooney,
Aye.
Batson,
Aye.
Carmichael,
Aye.
Rudy,
Aye.
Hessel,
Aye.
Huber,
Aye.
Lundstedt.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Aye.
Night,
Lisa, Jim.
Everybody.
bye Lisa, bye Jim.
You guys are great.